Welcome to the Lost Rewatch. We've made it to the end of season 5, and this one I'm going to tell you I had to get out the hanky a few times. I had to get out the tissues. It was I forgot how sad this episode was. But Caleb, you had something you wanted to show us.
Oh yeah. So for all you viewers at home, I'm sure if you've seen me on here before, you know my background is really Lostified. And I actually have one of the costumes that Elizabeth Mitchell wore as Juliet in the episode, the beginning of the end in season 4, and that's over here. And then, or kind of, yeah, right there. And I actually have the Jughead prop that she used to detonate. As far as I'm aware, there were 2 made. One of them was used for close-up shots, like when Saeed takes it out of the huge Jughead container. And they sold that one with the huge Jughead container during the auction. And then they had this one, which also came with the apron, the radiation apron. What do you call it?
Yeah, like the smock that you like X-ray textured or you wear at the dentist.
Yes. And so anyways, let me unplug my headphones. And I will bring it over.
Yeah,
Still hear me okay?
This is gonna be intense.
Okay.
I see your beard's growing back, Ralph.
Right.
Yeah, this has been about a week and a half.
That's bigger than I thought it'd be.
Yeah, that is tall.
It's like super tall. It's like half my body here. And has like all the wires and the tape and everything. If you look closely, I'm going to try to get up to the screen. If you can see on the metal there, the blood.
Oh, yeah, there's a little bit of blood splattered there.
It's kind of right here in that area.
That is so cool.
There's several some more there.
Oh, I'm jealous.
How heavy is it?
It's pretty heavy. Like I'm having to hold it with 2 hands. Obviously, I got a hook there, and then there's like the top where was duct taped and everything. That's the bottom. So, anyways, and it's obviously had some damage to it from when she hit it, because there's one strand here where the wires connect right here. It's actually the bloody one too. Right there, you can see where they had used a tie. What's that called? The
like a zip tie?
Yeah, a zip tie. So they use that there compared to the others where they are connected.
I mean, I'm surprised that if Elizabeth Mitchell is really beating on that with a rock, that like it only took that amount of damage, Yeah.
Well, there's like nicks on it too, things like that. So yeah,
because her first couple of whacks were pretty weak. It wasn't until she said, "Son of a bitch!"
She is dying, Jack. Give her a little slack.
I'm just saying.
And maybe they didn't want her damaging the prop so hard. Like she probably didn't want to hit it. So a lot of the sound may be coming from post-production.
It also might have been they just said, you know what, Liz, listen, you do have one more episode coming next season, so like you don't need to give it like 100%, just so you know, like you're not officially dead yet, so feel free to phone this one in if you need to.
But didn't she say I thought I was dead the whole time?
Don't even. But yeah, like it's kind of hard to show over the screen, but there are like some nicks on there. I had figured out one specific spot where I was like that right there, that's where she hit it. And the duct tape obviously is new because it was in the water, so it was wet. So there's some things you can tell that they like they kind of to keep all the wires to stay in place. The duct tape is probably new that wasn't actually in the shot. But other than that, it was like my most coveted prop, and I never thought I'd ever have a chance because I didn't get anything during the original auction, and this was like a total fate type thing.
Was it a pretty competitive auction? Like, were you like, did it almost slip out of your hands?
No. So what happened is he had listed it on eBay and then took it down because he changed his mind. And And I had like a mutual friend who told me that he knew where the prop was, and I was like, you have to give me his number and let me get in touch with this guy and like beg him, tell him how much of a Juliet fan I am. And so I got in touch with him, and I did, and we had a lot of correspondence back and forth, and I was like, here's my collection, and it was like this huge collage of Juliet stuff and my whole Lost things. And he was like, I would really like this to go to somebody who would really appreciate it as much as I did.
Yeah,
and
going to a good home.
What ended up happening is he I think him and his wife were having a kid, and like he wanted some extra money or whatever for that. So it kind of all worked out timing, and he was glad to let it go, and I was glad to get it. And we found out like we had the same birthday, and he was like, okay, I have to give it to you, But yeah. But no, in terms of that, it wasn't competitive because he held it for me for a long time.
Well, that's nice. Do you ever get out a rock sometimes? Just want to say, "There, son of a bitch," and then you just reenact the scene
every day. Yeah, every day.
Better than sort of wrapping yourself up with a chain and like dangling yourself above a hole and reenacting the other memorable Juliet scene. Actually, a lot of memorable Juliet scenes from this finale. Obviously, this is a send off to the character in many, many ways, between her, pleading with Sawyer to make it happen, her own tragic arc leading to her like death again, because she doesn't die until the first episode of season 6, but still of tragic
dead the whole time.
Oh,
they weren't dead the whole time.
Yeah, I thought they were. That's what I keep hearing.
Yeah.
You're going to have some casuals. You did.
Wait, there are no casuals that are coming into a Lost Rewatch podcast at the end of season 5 being like, I've got this leading theory here that I'm pretty sure they were dead the whole time.
I posted and was like, doing everything I can. I was like, my hair is super long. Nobody's seen it like this before in quarantine. I'm going to show the prop. Come be in the comments. I haven't even looked at the comments, but there's like,
it's just Ethan.
Oh.
So you're good.
Yeah.
But yeah,
nothing exciting in the chat yet. I'm kidding, Ethan. I'm kidding.
I consider this like a Juliet-centric episode. I mean, basically, It's all about her. And in my opinion, from all the television shows I've watched and all the finales I've seen and episodes I've seen, this one is my favorite episode of the whole show. But I also feel that there's, not that I've seen anyway, there's not been a bigger finale than this one. You just can't top it. Like at the end of the episode, you have no clue what's going on, who's alive, who's dead, if the main cast is even going to come back, where they're going to start when they come back. It's like a blank slate. And I've never seen that done before, on a show where it was like, a bomb goes off and you don't know who lives, who dies, if there's even going to be the same people you're used to seeing for 5 seasons.
But what's great about Lost is they set that up where anyone is fair game.
Yep.
So, anybody's favorite can go at any moment.
Especially
it is a big question mark.
Yeah, especially by season 5, right? We'd gone through several, and in the beginning it was some of the more unsavory characters, but once we start getting into like, Libby and Charlie, then it really is sort of like killing your darlings. I'll sort of add
Lucia.
Oh, everyone's favorite. She was definitely dead the whole time. Let me add on to Caleb's comment here.
Get inside for real.
I would go far as to say I think that despite the Jacob flashbacks and this finale, unlike others, doesn't necessarily focus too much on like the entire ensemble. But I would say I think overall this is a Juliet episode, and I think this is a Ben episode. They are really the two emotional and plot centers, in my opinion, especially watching this back between like the two quote unquote timelines outside again of the flashbacks in this episode.
Right.
For sure.
But also left us guessing too, because we see Jacob and Man in Black, but we don't know who he is yet.
This is the first time we've seen them, right?
Right. And we figure out Jacob because he says Jacob. But we don't know who Man in Black. We don't know he's his brother. We don't know who he is. He just wants to kill. He just wants to kill
another guy.
And to be fair, he's not going to really appear many other times as Titus Welliver, right? He was in most of the episode, but it was in the form of John Locke instead of who he was before he got thrown down that well.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So yeah,
one of the things I got to mention though is the first episode, the incident part 1, is that we open up with Jacob, and usually these kind of mysterious reveals of people usually are left for the season starter of like season 2 of Desmond and stuff, and
I mean, season 5 started with
Juliet.
With them going into, you know, the mines, and then it's revealed that Daniel Faraday is somehow there in the 70s. So yeah, to your point, they even did it in that season.
So, but one of the things that I got to mention is we get Jacob's theme for in this episode. I don't think that it's been played before, but this is my single favorite theme that Giacchino did for Lost.
Wow.
I love this theme.
Really?
This is my favorite theme. I've seen his show 3 times, thanks to Jack one of those times. But every time the Jacob theme comes up, I get really emotional. It's a really, really like pretty but haunting melody, and it's like this weird, like, I don't know. I always feel like Jacob is sort of hope, and he's definitely more of a good guy. And then you have the man in black who doesn't care. He only cares about himself. He wants to get off the island. So there's something about Jacob's themes that's really sort of nice and beautiful, but sad at the same time.
I don't see Jacob as a good guy.
Well, to be fair, he is kind of an asshole to Ben in his final moments. Like, I always felt the "what about you" line was a bit of a dig of the knife, for lack of a better term.
Well, you know what? I think that's because Jacob knows. Jacob knows all these people. He's looked into their lives. He's looked into everybody's life. And Ben's done nothing but just like ruthlessly murder, ruthlessly kill whoever he needs to do to get up on top. And it's not his island, as bad as Ben wants it. And he says, "What about you? You're not worthy of it." So
Ben deserved it for sure. Yeah.
Yeah.
But what about the scene where you have a great scene where you see, I'm assuming it's a Black Rock coming to,
right. Well, though I think the storm is what really takes the Black Rock to the island. So I always find it so weird that it was like pretty damn close to the island in this calm, serene weather before things strike and the statue gets taken down.
Well, storms happen quick, but I like how they're both
on the islands. Yeah, on the island, even in season 1.
Because but you have Man in Black. You're bringing them here. You're basically saying you're bringing them here. It's going to end the same. Oh, you know. And then Jacob's like, but he brought them there, and what happens? They die.
Yeah.
Right?
Well, I think
Man in Black kills them.
Well, I think it's also like Jacob is sort of a means to an end person. Like in that conversation, doesn't he say something along the lines of like, as long as the ending will turn out fine, like the process is whatever works with it. And I think that shows how maybe he has his own issues as a leader, where to your point, maybe maybe he purposely casts the net wide when it comes to candidates because some are more expendable than others. And, at that point, it's interesting. We haven't gotten into it yet in our rewatch really at all. But I'll be intrigued to see like what a meta narrative might be as to how Jacob feels about Ben Linus. Because even comparing this to the last finale, there's no place like home. You have Ben making this huge sacrifice to move the island to protect Jacob. And so I do feel like his feelings are, it's tough to say justified, but I think from his perspective, certainly, I went through all this. It's very Job-like. I went through all this for you because I worship you and I honor you because I thought I'd get to sit at your right hand. I haven't gotten my due yet. What's up with that?
He's doing it for himself, though. Ben is doing it for himself, not for the good of others. I think I think Jacob is good. Jacob represents life, and the Man in Black represents death. When Locke gets pushed out of the window, Jacob goes and saves his life by touching him.
And he also kills Nadia. So
yeah,
what about that?
He didn't push her out there.
But
he kills them both ways before crossing the street. Okay, but he saved Saeed. Is what happened.
This is where he killed Nadia, but he did save Saeed. Look, here's what I will say.
No, what I'm saying is two people. They were both crossing the street,
and he let Nadia go. And he knows what's going to happen, right? He knows the car is going to come and run over Nadia. He goes, I don't need Nadia. I need Saeed.
Well,
My
that's
thing-
because we all know that Nadia's not Saeed's true love. It's Shannon. That's proven in the finale.
Yeah, proven so fondly. Well, listen, I'm not disagreeing with your point that I do think Jacob represents good. I think the point is that good is not all good, if that makes sense.
I feel like Jacob represents light.
Yes, I would agree with that. And light, even shades of light, have some darkness to them.
Right.
And I think that is a very interesting theme to explore.
The smartest person on Lost, Frank. Can we all agree Frank is the smartest person on the show?
He's the most pragmatic, I think.
Juliet is the smartest. Sorry,
Okay, well, she's dead, but or soon to be.
not yet.
Wait, does your logic like, well, she died, so clearly she's not that smart?
Well, no, I'm saying that she's of the people that are alive in season 6, right? So what did Frank say when Braun says, he goes, "We're the good guys," and Frank says, "I find it." What his exact words were? Again, usually when people
who go out of their way
to tell me they're good are the bad guys,
right?
and so that's where I think the writers did a great job, because here we're arguing about, is Jacob good or bad? I think he wanted to win a game because he could never beat his brother at a game. Again, Man in Black can't leave if he doesn't bring anyone to the island. There is no loophole because Man in Black can't get off the island.
But I do think that
if he's the good guy, you keep evil on the island.
But I do think that there is a nice parallel in the Jacob story with the Jack story of, this is someone who I think this is sort of like a hesitant leader in a certain regard, where like the Man in Black is doing his thing and Jacob's like, well, I guess I have to oppose you because you're trying to do this right now. And so in an effort of doing that, he's sort of thrust into this position where he may make mistakes. And that very much tracks with the Jack trajectory, right? This is someone who in White Rabbit was pushed into this position, by the visit of his father and John Locke, and was like, all right, I guess I'll be the leader. And he ends up leading them for better or for worse. And I think this idea of leading people and making decisions, even if they're not sometimes the best decisions, or just doing it for a greater good, for lack of a better term, is a theme that carries both in this larger meta narrative and within the character themes themselves. And we even see in this episode where Jack has now become the full John Locke. He's taken the initiative. He says, I've never felt more confident in my life about the idea of detonating a nuclear bomb to put us in a parallel universe where our plane lands at LAX.
I haven't hated Jack more.
I'm glad you said that, because this is my third full rewatch. I've watched each episode, I don't know how many times, but in order. I have to say, Jack is probably my least favorite character now.
Right now, yeah, at this moment, yes.
Because the episode before, when Kate was telling him, basically saying, we're going to land in LAX. We're not going to know each other. You're going to be in handcuffs. You're going to jail. I don't care. I just want I want to forget everything that happened. And basically, and when he's telling Sawyer, and Sawyer goes, well, I lost her. He goes, Doc, she's right there. Go get her, Jack.
Right.
And he's like, but he's so selfish.
It's
Kate. I think Jack he's the most selfish character on the show. And Locke is
no.
too.
That Benjamin Linus, to Ralph's point, is by far the most selfish character on the show. But I think that Jack was imbued by he got his groove back, in a manner of speaking, with like the whole Jeremy Bentham stuff. And it has given him this fire of like, for some reason, going through with this. I will say what always weirded me out about this finale is just how literally back and forth these characters go, particularly like the Kate, Sawyer, Juliet of like, okay, we're not going to stop Jack. Okay, wait, we are going to stop him. Wait, now we're not going to stop him. And the reasons do track. It just always found it so weird that they keep going back and forth and back and forth and back and forth.
So I want to circle back to something that was mentioned, how we were talking about like a while back about Jack or Ben and Juliet, and how we think that this is like a centric episode for them. And I also wanted to mention that I feel like it's very mythology heavy, like you said, bringing up Jacob and the statue and things like that. And I also think that, like you said, it felt more like a premiere. And this was the first time that I actually was thinking about it and was like, this really does feel like a premiere. Like, I feel like the incident 1 and 2 feels like part 1, and then LAX part whatever 1, 2, 3. That's like part 2. I feel like it continues the thing, and then you start from there. But in terms of Jack and not being likable right now, I think it's important to think back to the scene where he's telling Kate, we should do this, and she's like, no, we shouldn't, and he's talking about everybody that we loved would be back, and she's like, yeah, but it's not going to work or whatever, and he says, it was all misery, Kate says it wasn't all misery, and Jack looks at her and says, enough of it was. So Jack's coming from the perspective of he personally, because he's the fix-it guy, he personally feels responsible for all these deaths that have already happened. Boone, things like that, even though that, wasn't his fault. So he takes on these burdens, and therefore to him, his whole life has been like a whole failure, which is also what his dad has just programmed into him all his life. So of course he's going to come, and think this way. And I also think it parallels to how Locke was back in
season 2.
Yeah, when another electromagnetic thing or whatever. But with Locke, he ultimately ended up getting Boone killed from his doings, and then saying that it was a sacrifice the island demanded. Whereas Jack, after Juliet dies, he's completely remorseful and knows what he did wrong, and then he is like, I'm sitting back and just letting destiny take over. And I think that's when he starts progressing in the final season. Right. Anyway, just yeah. Oh, and I also think Jacob's evil.
Like I always feel like with Locke and Boone, and then with Jack and everybody, it's obsession that leads to their downfall. Like Jack wanted Kate, but when they were the Oceanic 6, he was yelling at her in a parking lot, we have to go back. His obsession then turned into his downfall. One of those that bring to Linus is that he made that tapestry on the loom. And he tells Ben Linus that it takes patience, which is a virtue that Ben Linus doesn't have. He doesn't have patience. He has to go. He'd rather create destruction to get whatever he needs instead of waiting for it and letting the island present it to him. So I feel like that's a big moment too, where Jacob's like, "You're not worthy," and I feel like Jacob knows that is the black. And I feel that Jacob knows why he brought Ben along with him as the loophole.
Oh, he says. Oh, he does. He outright says it.
So he doesn't. He just he knows the right thing to say to sacrifice himself to end this. So Jacob tells him, "What about you?" He's like the only one that pretty much tells Ben Linus that he's worthless, and Ben Linus believes it, and he can't handle that.
Well, yeah, because this is the guy that he's been worshiping and idolizing this entire time.
But even every time that Ben Linus gets beat up, you never feel like he's down. Like you always feel like the wheels are still turning and he's on top of things. This is the first time where he gets punched emotionally and
he's lost everything. Because Man in Black as Locke, and we should have figured out this a long time ago that it wasn't Locke because he was confident. He was smart. I mean, he just was so much different than John Locke. He, like you said, he wasn't obsessed with things. He just had a plan. He was confident. He was a leader. And the whole time, I still remember saying this over and over again. What has gotten into John Locke? But anyway,
right. It was weird though. I mean, because we hadn't experienced a character yet who had died and come back to life. So I think at the time we were just like, okay, maybe it was just that this guy had, a new lease on. Well, except for Mikhail, apparently, 3 times over.
Christian Shepherd in the first season, where we saw him in the casket, and then he's walking around the island, which is the exact thing that's happening now. But I don't think at the time anyone put it togetger.
No, nobody knew that the Man in Black, that this is what he did. They just thought it was one of Jack's hallucinations. That was the whole point of White Rabbit.
Yeah, we didn't have any idea who Man in Black was. But go ahead.
I think that, for most of us, we were like, why is Locke acting weird? But to be honest, he really wasn't acting that much weirder than he had started to be on the island. I mean, he was throwing knives in Naomi's back, killing people, and he was going off the rails there. So for us to kind of, I mean, I know he, died.
To be fair, he wasn't throwing knives into anybody's backs now, so that is weird. To your point, like he has not outright murdered anybody yet.
Well, he was like, Richard, we've got to deal with the Ajira passengers. We've got to deal with them. So I'm like,
but that's what I'm saying. He's become where he was. I think Ralph, you said he was compulsive. He was obsessed with things. Here he's not. Where Ben, you're saying how Ben was, always took those beatings and got back up. Well, here Locke, Man in Black Locke, is manipulating Ben. He's basically there was no way that Ben follows this guy in the first 4 seasons like he's doing right now. There's no way. But he's so powerful.
I love the short fuse that Ben Linus has between this and in No Place Like Home, where he kills Kimi despite the fact that it would blow up the freighter, just being like, "Oh, he killed my daughter." I just love that characterization because even outside of the Henry Gale stuff, when we first get to know him in season 3, like he's so calm, cool, and collected. Even to your point, Ralph, when he's getting the crap kicked out of him, he said like, "I have a plan." And this is really when he's like on his toes, and when he's on his toes, he gets stabby, evidently. And it's an interesting facet of the character that we hadn't seen before.
And Diane points out that Terry O'Quinn didn't know at first he wasn't playing John Locke, which is amazing.
That's something that could be included in the script. You could just mention that John Locke has a new sense of confidence, something like that. You can put stuff in the dialogue where I'm sure there's screen. There's in the script. There's stage direction that say something to the effect of he's a changed man. He's on the island. He's a changed man. He has new confidence. Yeah. So Terry O'Quinn will know to play it differently. That something's up without knowing he's not John Locke.
Well, even Michael Emerson has to play it differently, also.
Yeah.
Right. I mean, you could essentially write like, "Hey, just so you know, this is the sequel to Walkabout that John Locke is going through right now. He woke up, new lease on life. He flexed his toes. Now he's back on the island." And that's what made, the reveal of him being the man in the box. I mean, as much as we might roll our eyes in retrospective, like, the shot of Frank looking into the box and we don't see what it was, and just going terrific. Since we all know what's in the box now, it was a big reveal because this was a total game changer of what the hell is going on now.
Well, didn't he say terrific? I wish you would have showed me that.
Speaking of game changers, Jack held on to a theory for a really long time, and this episode disproved that crackpot theory.
It actually
Rose and Bernard don't work for Carmen.
Okay, when you see Rose and Bernard, what do they have all around there? What do they have? Where's their food coming from?
Supply drops.
Dharma. And what do they also say is they're retired. So you can take it any way you want. So they retired from
All right. There's something really important that Bernard says, which I caught for the first time on the viewing. Okay. No, not that. When Kate and Sawyer and those guys are talking to them, they're talking about Jack, and they're like, "Oh, there's always something going on. You're always trying to kill each other." Mm-hmm. And they're like, "No, this is going to kill everybody. We're all going to die." And Bernard replies with, "So we die. We'll be together. That's all that matters in the end."
Right. So you have to imagine that even though Desmond was the first to wake up, I think canonically it was probably Rose and Bernard, right? They just sort of woke up in the sideways universe. They're like, "Oh yeah, you. Okay, great. Let's wait into the church until everybody's woken up."
Oh, I think
that's
Rose
the whole thing. It says the whole thing. This line is so important to the finale of the series.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter as long as we're together, and it even in the quote says the end. So it's. I mean, I don't know how much in advance. Once we knew that we're getting 6th season and that's it, like about halfway through season 3. I'm wondering how many of these seeds were on purpose. Like this line of Bernard's, I wonder if they'd already...
This was definitely on purpose. I would imagine
then,
that line.
They knew it.
And then what about the Apollo bar getting stuck in the machine?
Yeah, that was another fun one too. And I was wondering, I was waiting for Jacob and Jack to go Dutch on it, or for Jacob to reach his hand up to get it out of the vending machine, and they have a romantic tryst.
Yeah. I never heard of
At least Jack to say thank you.
Yeah.
You look like you're falling down the hatch right now.
Yeah, I mean,
because
I don't
your
know.
head's right. In that spot.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. A kiss is sort of a form of a thank you, right? In it with your lips.
Yeah.
Now, I wonder.
Okay, can I just say something real quick though?
No.
Real quick. It's probably gonna go on longer, but Caleb mentioned the hatch. There's a scene where Locke and Ben are sitting there, and Locke says, "Look over there," and he says, "What? It's a door." Yeah, but it's the door that led to the hatch where we first met.
Right.
It's a hatch that led to the bunker. That is not a door that led to a hatch. A hatch is a thing that's sitting that they're looking at. That has always bugged me that they call the Dharma station hatches.
I found it. Yeah, it's a good point in terms of like the vernacular. There were so many callbacks to the first couple seasons. I thought we'd like save them for season 6 when we go to the caves and all that for the first time in a while, but I forgot that they like go back to the old 815 camp. Sun finds the drive shaft ring. I think to the point that we just made, I think they knew how they wanted to end things, and they're like, all right, let's start up this one last ride thing. Let's go to this camp for the last time ever and like do a time of your life-esque montage to all the shenanigans that ensued here before the flaming arrows.
I did when you mentioned that scene, Ralph. I said, someone's going to complain about it.
Yeah, me.
I think I even wrote it down. Someone's going to.
It's not a door. It's not a door. It's a hatch. It's a hatch that leads to a bunker. You know what? Speaking of callback,
everyone calls it a hatch, though.
I know, and that drives me nuts. You know what? Speaking of callbacks, I mention this every time I watch one of these episodes. I absolutely love it. So in like 1998, 99, Michael Giacchino did the music for a video game called Medal of Honor. Great game. And in that game, there is a level where you're in a submarine. And the music that's used in that level for the submarine is always used on Lost when you see the submarine. So the submarine that has its own theme that's taken from the game Medal of Honor. So if anybody looks up like Michael Giacchino Medal of Honor U-boat, you'll hear that theme in Lost every single time you see the submarine. Yeah, it's really cool.
It's not want not. If there was if there were superheroes in Lost, might as well use the Incredibles music too, right? It makes sense to your composer.
It's one of my favorite things because I was a huge fan of the game and I had the soundtrack. It was the first video game soundtrack I owned, just because the music is so good. And I caught that, and I think in like whenever this was, like whenever they first showed it, like maybe in season 4, season 3, whenever the sub first showed up.
Yeah, season 3, because that's when they're going to use it.
Blew it up, and Juliet didn't get to go home.
I went to Michael Giacchino's website. And I went to look for the contact info. I'm like, oh my gosh, I can't believe you. Thank you, because this was before Twitter, so you couldn't just tweet somebody. And I'm like, oh my gosh, has anybody else told you about, like, did anyone else notice it? And it's like, no, you're the first one. And I'm like, oh, that's so awesome.
Wow, that's awesome.
It's so crazy because that score, just look it up. Michael Giacchino, Medal of Honor, U-boat. And you'll hear that theme used throughout Lost every single time the submarine shows.
So you're saying it got lazy?
No, it's like this weird, it's like the weirdest inside joke.
Yeah, I'm just kidding. I'm just joking.
Yeah.
I did want to talk about Jack and his dad because we have this scene in the hospital. Jack messes up.
Yeah, I'm disappointed in that. I was promised angel hair pasta spewing from this woman's back. I did not see it. We've been told this story since the first episode. I saw nothing. I don't know what they're doing. I was disappointed.
That would be a great dish to bring at like a Lost like potluck.
Yeah,
angel hair pasta.
But I there's not many times I'm going to defend Jack's dad, but I think Jack's dad was right. He needed to calm his son down. His son was acting irrational. He completely froze, and it's called tough love. And I thought Jack was being a brat. Jack, if you don't like it, go to a different hospital. Don't work at the same hospital your dad's working at.
Yeah, that's
all right,
weird.
Jack, if you're that great a surgeon, it's Los Angeles. They
know.
have more than one hospital.
I mean, to be fair,
else.
this was the first, it seemed like from the story, this was the first major surgery he had done. He made a mistake. You would probably freak out too, despite extensive medical training. So I don't blame Christian either for what he did. I mean, I just think in that moment, it's what Jack needed to hear was sort of snap out of it, count to 5. So I don't begrudge either one of them for the way they reacted in this scene.
No, I'm not saying. I'm saying Jack's reaction after when he went to his dad and said, "Oh, you still can't do that to me. People already think I'm here only because of you." Blah 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 blah. And of course he was mad because the candy bar got stuck. Let's be fair. But I just said I just was like, if Christian doesn't step in, the person on the table dies, right? Mm-hmm. Or at least paralyzed. So his dad did the right thing. And I'm sorry, Jack overreacted. Again, if you don't like working under your dad or being, considering that you're only there because of your dad, again, it's LA. They have more than one hospital. Go to a different hospital. I'm really on an anti-Jack.
Is that what Jay did? He went and did his own show, Geeked Out Life.
Right, exactly. That's the thing. I hate the way you're treating me. Go and do this somewhere else.
Well, to be fair, I went first, so maybe.
Wait, so then was it the opposite? Were you the Jack in this scenario then?
I am the Jack and the Jack. So,
so I think
5, and I said I couldn't do it, so I left.
I think we need to get on the same page with something. So or at least I know what everybody's thinking, because Ralph, you've mentioned about how you think Jacob is good, and I just have a really big hard time with that because he killed so many people. And I feel like the man in black is really the victim there because he found out the truth and wanted to leave. And Jacob was the one who caused the whole problem of his brother even being possessed by the smoke monster when all he wanted to do was leave. So I understand the man in black manipulated things, killed people, whatever, as much as he could to try to leave. But Jacob also, I think, killed probably way more people. So I see him I think at first we were supposed to see him as this godlike figure because he was made up to be so much, like that. But when you pull back the curtain, it's kind of it's kind of like in religion in some way. Like if you're going to say, God, spared these people in the fire, then you also have to say, well, God killed those people that were in the fire. Right, and I feel like you can't give Jacob credit for saving these lives if you don't acknowledge the Nadia, the plane crash, and all those people, things like that.
Well, everyone that comes, he brings to the island, even if Man in Black kills him, he's responsible. He shares some of the blame because he knows they're going to die. Exactly.
And, it's always said, well, everybody was lost in their lives and Jacob plucked them out and they weren't having a good existence until Jacob did that. But who was Jacob to do that? These people didn't volunteer. He forced them there. So,
and I still say that's what hurt Lost, why people don't like Across the Sea, because we see Jacob as not this all-knowing, the smartest guy in the world. He's not the sharpest tool in the shed.
No,
right.
The reason why people hate Across the Sea is because it happened after 3 major character deaths, and Jack's like, all right, time to go kill John Locke, and then it's like, but enough about that. Let's go thousands of years back. It was the Terrence and Phillip not without my anus of Lost, and you know it, Jack. You know it.
I can show you. I can dig up probably 10,000 emails from people saying, Jack, stop talking about how Jacob's a bad guy. He's smart. He's doing it for the greater good. And then when we see Across the Sea, everyone goes, oh. Suddenly, that day I stopped getting emails telling me that stop bashing on Jacob because he's the smartest guy in the world.
They're like, go ahead.
Here's the thing that's going to kind of answer a couple of questions brought up here. Is as far as Caleb goes, I have only seen Across the Sea once.
Oh wow! See, I know people are like Abaturno and Across the Sea. People love the Richard episode and hate Across the Sea, and I'm like the opposite. So
wow, you hate Avatar now.
my whole issue.
I don't hate it, but like I like Across the Sea way better.
You said that before, and I still don't get it.
My whole issue with Across the Sea is the fact that it happens like right before the penultimate episode.
Yeah, the
placement of it was not great.
The placement is terrible.
Right. Which is why if you there's been a suggested solution where actually I know that Caleb had said that LAX is part 2 of this duology, but if you watch Across the Sea as the season 6 premiere, I have been told that it makes things more palatable in the general flow of season 6.
Oh,
my suggestion was for those of you that have read Alan Moore's Watchmen. At the end of each issue, there's a short story about the Black Freighter. It's a pirate ship, and you get a couple of pages at the end of each issue, and then when you're by the time you're done with the series, you have like essentially one extra comic book worth of story there. I always thought it would be nice to do Across the Sea sprinkled across the episodes as a flashback, and have them, have it so you get little glimpses through
over the whole final 6 season.
Yeah, leading up to the finale. There's no. I mean, I'll have to do it the way you said, Mike, but I don't know. I can't. When I'm doing a rewatch of Lost, it just blows the wind out of the sails. It's like the momentum is just like dropped off. Luckily for me, when Across the Sea happened, when it first aired, I was like, oh boy. I was lucky enough to go to my first Michael Giacchino concert, where they played the penultimate episode a mere like 3 days after. It was like the Friday after Across the Sea. It was like 2 or 3 days later. So I didn't have to wait a whole week. And it's tough when you wait a whole week to see that storyline continue, and then it just stops dead in its tracks. I don't mind the story. It's just the placement is so bad. So I think
why do you think they put it there? Why do you? Because they're not.
I remember
from Lost. They're not stupid. Why would they have put it where they did? Because that is, I'll be honest, that is the biggest complaint everybody has.
I remember there was an interview or something, an article or something that they did, and they were talking about how they wanted that episode, because The Candidate is such a whirlwind of, it's almost like this episode in terms of an action-packed sequence that has so much going on. It's so chaotic. So for that episode to end and then Across the Sea to be afterward, I'm pretty sure they had mentioned how, because The Candidate was so, all over the place at the end, they wanted an episode to kind of give everybody to breathe. And I mean, I know there's a week between episodes or whatever, but I think like in the storytelling aspect of it, I think they were still trying to let the viewers decompress.
I mean, yeah, it's on Down the Hatch, which is the rewatch podcast that I do. We just finished covering Trisha Tanaka is Dead, which at the time was received as not very favorably. But to your point, Caleb, it was sort of like a smaller version of that same idea of like a lot of dark, heavy crap has happened. We need something quote unquote light or like an intermission almost between to give you room to breathe.
And now people love that episode.
Exactly, because
I think I was on the episode where Jack did the rewatch, and that was the second of 2 episodes. The first episode being Stranger in a Strange
Land. Yeah.
So it's like, I mean, you're talking. I mean, and I feel like that Trisha Tanaka is the point where the series finishes its lull and starts getting back on track. I think from Trisha Tanaka is Dead until the finale, every episode is like awesome, with the exception of one. But that's just maybe the placement of it.
I do like your idea of Cross the Sea where if they just would have put bits and pieces in each episode.
Yeah, that's a good point as well. If they could like make it like almost like what was it, Breaking Bad season 2, when the cold open of a few episodes sort of gave away the big twist to end it. But it sort of like interspersed out to be like, what is this? It would be interesting if sort of like, the first scene of the incident, like just put in little bits of Across the Sea throughout the 6th season. That could be an interesting way to parse things out too.
I mean, I thought that's that
Is Jack frozen for anybody else?
Jack is frozen for me.
Okay.
Oh no.
What are you gonna do, Jack?
I'm catching like every other word, and he's
and
he's
stuck-
going
he's
like
stuck
this.
like this.
Yes, yes. Okay, good. I was like, either I'm froze or he's froze.
I think he's falling into the
The
shaft
hat,
there.
the door, the hat.
That is
yeah.
and that was brutal. I don't know why I always like forget how brutal Juliet's death scene is, but like
Mhm.
it's brutal for her. It's brutal for Sawyer, who's by far the
Yeah.
most emotional we've ever seen the character. Like you really
For sure.
get the weight of how much not only she loved him, but how much he loved her.
Yeah, it's my favorite relationship.
I thought I heard him trying, but see.
Yeah, he's still frozen.
But yeah, that's what actually something I was going to touch on. The brutality of her death, but she's really a character that personifies the death, by 1,000 cuts, because she is so worn down, and especially by the time Jack and Kate and company arrive back to the island. Don't put me in the first slot. I don't want to be that person. Anyway, but I do feel like she, she was on this really high after successfully delivering the first child, that she was able to. And then it was like, bam, the next day, saw Kate and company arrive, and it was just like she just kept on getting cut down. Jack wouldn't help her save Ben. Their whole life there was unraveling, and then you have Sawyer looking at Kate and these not good moments where he should be. So
yeah, and I think Sawyer brings up that point as well, right? When he says like everything we were living pretty fine in Dharmaville until you came back. And so I do feel like, granted, he received less cuts than Juliet, but I do feel like he was also undergoing a little bit of anguish of like, he finally was going straight. He finally became a leader. He found this life that he wanted. And now it was like the past was coming back to really screw with him.
What's crazy about Sawyer, though, is that he even mentions it in this episode that he could have stopped his parents from dying. He said that happened last year. He could have stopped that. He could have taken the submarine, got off the island, and stopped his dad and mom from getting killed. And he didn't. He's grown up past that thing that was sitting in his back pocket for 30 years.
Quite literally. Yeah, it was in a letter in his back pocket.
And it was like that is huge growth for Sawyer to be able to let that go, and to like, that's how much he loves Juliet as well. It's like he's willing to stay on the island and be happy with her and just accept that this is his life and not interfere with his past, because he knows if he were to go and stop his parents' death, it would have sent him on a different path and he would have never met Juliet. And that's like the best love story on Lost.
Yeah, well, that's why
when he was trying to talk her out of it, on the pier, he's like, whatever you're trying to go back to doesn't even exist yet, and she said, it's not a reason not to go, because, she made a sacrifice too, because for 3 years she was held captive there on that island. So she hates it more than anybody. Jack said that back in season 3, you want to get off this island more than anybody here. And so I think, to compliment her, Sawyer also stayed. And like you said, he had this, amazing growth that he had.
Well, and it's also his argument though, too, of like, he's learned in his own way. And look, he was also traveling with Faraday and company. So he also knows the virtues of whatever happened. And so he's like, listen, I've learned many times we cannot change things. We should not go back and try to change things. And so it shows just like, Sawyer is a stubborn character, but almost stubbornness in a different way. And speaking of the Faraday, I will say, unfortunately, not a huge episode for like the Hurley, Jin, Miles side of things. After their little like cameo in the van, that's pretty much it.
Hey, I'm glad you took
Trump.
that first spot, because it was really bothering me. I was like, I don't like the pressure of just being that first box, even
Jack,
though nothing.
Jack, we were talking about Sawyer and the sacrifice he made by not going and stopping his parents' death, because now it means it would take him off track to meeting Juliet and living with her.
Right.
Do you have any thoughts on Sawyer on this episode?
I wrote down that I said Josh Holloway's acting improved each season. I mean, maybe they just gave him more to do, but
I think it was a thing where they saw what Josh Holloway could do, and I like to think they're like, okay, let's stretch him a little bit more. Let's have him do more stuff. Little LaFleur of it all. Like now he's fully soaring.
Yeah, he just wasn't a pretty face. He was. I mean, when he sits down with Jack, he says, "Sit down, Doc," and he talks to him. He's the most this whole season, he's been the most sensible person.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas, like that scene where he goes, where Jack says, we do things different here. I think things out. When you were in charge, people died.
Yeah.
And of course, what happens here is his love of his life dies because of Jack's plan.
Do we think is it logical that their fight ended up in a tie? Do we think that on paper one would take out one over the other when it came to a fist fight?
I think Sawyer would win. Jack's kind of lost it mentally.
I think Jack was, well, never mind. No, I was going to say Jack would just like do whatever you got to do. I don't care.
Well, if you remember from the pilot, when Sawyer gets in the fight with Saeed, Sawyer fights dirty. Sawyer's throwing sand, like he's ready to do whatever. So maybe this just shows the changed person that he is. That he's like, it'd be a nice gentleman's boxing match in the jungle.
There is one where he does kick Jack to take advantage of a certain issue, certain spot where it's sensitive. So he's not completely clean.
I was going to mention that, Sawyer, he's kind of just naturally angry. I mean, that was his current state as soon as we met him. So to talk about his growth and progression in the acting, it's almost like, Sawyer's in charge now. He's not doing it the way Jack did it. He's more calm. But I guess I imagine them saying, okay, Josh, take that anger and kind of, bottle it up, push it down. It's still there and it's ready to come out at any second, but just you're okay right now. You know what I mean? Because as soon as the Jack thing happens, as soon as their life's ruined, it starts coming out. And then after Juliet dies, he's back to normal Sawyer, being an asshole. So
I wanted to say, was Juliet pregnant?
The character?
The character, yeah. Because there's a scene where she keeps the gun's there, but she keeps holding her. If you watch her hand, she's holding her stomach.
Where Bernard says, "Are you sure you wouldn't want to stay for some tea?"
Right.
Because maybe another time, and puts her hand on her stomach.
Right.
I mean, it has been
because caffeine's not good for
she might just have stomach issues, She might just be like, "Oh, I'm seasick." We just paddled over on the raft.
But if you watch that scene a couple times, there's a couple times where Kate where Sawyer looks back at Kate, and that changes everything. She has her hand on her stomach.
Well, back on the previous episode when Amy hands her baby Ethan and says, "Oh, I picked out a name. It's Ethan." And then Amy was like, "Well, when are you and Jim going to get one of these?" And she just kind of, she's like, "The timing has to be right." I don't know.
Yeah.
I know it's heavily debated that she is, and if you look really close at the scene, which is in LAX, where she's like, "I have to tell you something that's really, really important," it looks like she's saying, and then it stops.
Right. I thought I froze again.
Almost as if it's a P word, going to be the next. Obviously, we know it worked. Miles did his thing. But I think Elizabeth Mitchell, I think she confirmed in an interview that she was, but I don't know if that's like actually canon because she didn't mention anything regarding like scripts or anything. I don't know why they would do that to viewers to like add extra insult to injury. But yeah.
Maybe she was saying I'm pooping. because she's dying. I don't know. My theory is that she's just having like a lot of bad digestive issues this entire finale.
She's like, I'm pissed. I'm pissed.
Yeah, but I was bashing on that nuke, and I'm angry, and I was bashing it with a rock.
She's like, kill Ben. Kill Ben.
I got Jack going with that one.
I have to tell you something. It's really, really important. I'm still pissed at Ben. Kill him.
I'm pooping. Yeah, that could have been it. I don't have any depends on. It's a messy down here. Anyway, yeah, I still think I like to think. I just like to see the subtle signs, and like I said, she did keep hope. And I just, of course, they don't tell. It's one of those things where we have to guess and we have to theorize on it. And I think that's what I say this every episode. That's what makes Lost such a great show, because they don't hit us over the head with it. We can go with our own imagination.
That's another reason I'm not a big fan of Across the Sea. I feel like it and I mentioned this before. No, I like the idea of science versus faith, and I feel like Across the Sea kind of tipped the scales towards faith a little bit too much.
I think I'm gonna have you back on for that episode. Just so you have
I mentioned that I should be on that episode.
While you froze up, we were also mentioning how Juliet, in her brutal death, was kind of one of those situations where, death by 1,000 cuts, where you just keep on getting cut down and down and down. And you can see that at the very end of Follow the Leader that I had mentioned to you, Jack, where there's this extremely slowed down shot of her just staring, and then she looks down because she's staring at Sawyer after Kate enters the sub. But then you see in this episode her watching the sub go away, and it's like that's her last chance, and she knows it, kind of. And then there's this moment where Sawyer's like, I made a decision and I'm sticking to it. We're leaving this island, and Juliet, which is why I think she decides to bust everybody out, is she was like, no, James, we made the decision and we're going to do something about it or whatever. So he was like, me. And she's like, no, we did. And, the longing looks at Kate. And so all these things had been cut down. And as I mentioned earlier about, she was first able to successfully deliver what we now know as Ethan, the baby. So she was coming off this really big high down to a super low where Kate and company immediately arrived the next day. And then you have to take into account everything that happened to her on the island in general, and how her insecurities and, if you will, pull her down.
Now, I just thought of something too. If the plan works and she doesn't die, and everything, the plane doesn't crash, everything just goes back to the way it was before, she's stuck back in with Ben.
Yeah. Okay. So, this is why Juliet is our Lord and Savior. I mean, this is exactly why. So let's go into details. First of all, she knowing a young Ben will grow up and torture her for 3 years, still decides to save his life.
Right.
And give him help and operate on him and have him sent to the others. Okay, that's a big deal, number one. I understand why Jack didn't want to have any part of it, and I'm not saying I disagree that he did, but that just shows what kind of person she is. Then you have, exactly what you said, that she was willing. So I honestly feel, it's always been said that there's no such thing as altruism, because no matter what you do, you're always going to end up getting something that you wanted. And I feel like her detonating the bomb is the closest you're ever going to come to any type of truly altruistic action. Because although she's getting something out of it, she's, believing that when she hits the bomb, her friends and loved ones will be safe. She's also condemning herself, like you said, back to the same spot she was in, being kidnapped and all that.
And miserable.
So, yeah, and I think that shows that shows so much to her character. And then also as she's falling, the metal starts to creak and everything, and that's when she realizes I've got to let go, or Sawyer and Kate are going to fall in with me.
I wonder. Well, the thing is, I'm trying to remember if they had like calculated exactly when the bomb would send them back to, because ideally it would send them back to like the year 2000, so Juliet could never have gone to the island in the first place. She could have never gotten that PowerPoint presentation from Richard Alpert, and her ex-husband would have never gotten hit by the bus, and she would have just lived on doing her thing, working on her successful cancer treatment for her sister.
Well, I think her ex-husband getting hit by the bus was a good thing for Juliet, right? So,
I mean, it was. I guess it worked out for her, but at the same time, he was an asshole. But I don't think he was outwardly like toxic to her career or anything like that. Definitely a better presence in her life than Ben Linus was. That's for sure.
Yeah, I don't. If any of y'all have read Pearson Moore's book called Lost Identity, it really goes into detail with every single character. And it's great in the Juliet chapter, of course, because it talks about it talks about like the men in her life and how like her, ex-husband Edmund had this control over her at her work, and wouldn't let her do her job, and any type of success she had, he would take. And then you have Ben, who just completely said, "You're mine," as if she's an object, and all the countless horrible things he did to her, and then all this emotional manipulation. And then you have Jack, who, albeit maybe not his fault, he was finding somebody to have a companionship with when Kate would, be somewhere else. And so, he truly wasn't there for her. And she was kind of using him as much as he was her, because she was trying to use him as a way off the island and to escape him. So when you finally get to the Sawyer, you see his growth because of how great of a person she is, and you see that he's the person she needed, and that neither were like controlling each other, and it was a genuine, kinship or whatever you want to call it. So
they were perfect, whereas Kate and Sawyer were not perfect for each other.
Absolutely. They hooked up just a few times and had a little fling, and there's no such thing as Sawyer and Kate shippers. They don't exist.
Well, maybe.
Wow, a skater denier.
No. Oh, absolutely. 100%. He slept with Kate and then 3 days later slept with Ana Lucia. Don't give me this.
Oh, he's just a
crap.
dog.
Don't give me that crap.
I think Ana Lucia probably would have been better for him than Juliet, right? Is that what you're thinking?
No, he needs that the yin to the yang. That's why Sawyer and Kate, I agree, are much better friends than they are any sort of romantic partners, because they're too samey. When you're searching for a partner, you want someone that can balance you out a little bit, and she certainly does that for him.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, Ana Lucia is like what's it called? Amosexual or what? Her and her gun. That's all she cares about.
Well, I hate to be the defender of Ana Lucia, but she was put in that position. She was put as the leader of that,
Which again goes back to she does kill a guy because he shot her when she was pregnant, and he decides she murders him in cold blood and then lies about it. So.
Well, you killed my child. Open season. All right. The way she was not 100%. She was stressed out, right?
Oh yeah. Was it? Yeah.
Someone kills my child. I'm probably going to go after him.
Right, but if someone goes after your child and then the person was brought in front of you to receive most likely the death penalty, and you say, "Nope, definitely not him. Please let him go free," just so you personally can gun him down in an alley.
Let's face it, she may have forgot that it was him. For a second, she just maybe blanked out for a second. Maybe no.
All right.
I mean, she is a pretty piss poor character, but I know when I was on this show with you for it was one of her episodes. I talked about how all these characters they didn't do enough to show that these characters were all suffering from PTSD. They did with some, but not all. But I do remember talking heavily about how Ana Lucia really had a bad case of mental illness that she did not deal with, and her mom, being her supervisor or whoever, should have dealt with and did the best she could. But then, like you said, with Jack and his dad, you have this conflict of they shouldn't be working together.
No. Well, and also, I say Ana Lucia on Island. The one person she had to bounce things off with was Echo, and then Echo didn't talk for
Does
4
the
days.
yeah?
So
I completely think
who does she? She's got all this. She's on this island where people are being taken and all this different stuff. People are looking for her. Save me, Ana Lucia. And,
I love the other 48 days and even parts of Collision for singing to Anna Sakaji. But to answer your question, I think that in retrospect, Libby was probably the better number 2 to have from the tailies. She was a psychologist. She had medical experience. She seemed to be the more level-headed, I think, between her and Echo in retrospect.
Was she a psychologist? Do we know for sure? We know that.
Listen, there's a lot of open questions about Libby. So I don't know. Maybe if Libby had stayed on the show, maybe she would have become Sawyer's love interest, and she would have been the one falling down the shaft at the end of season 5.
I think Hurley would have been a little upset by that.
Hurley would have been more of the incident then, instead of just driving around a van for 20 minutes.
I think if anybody would have, and if anybody would have taken Juliet's place in this moment in terms of hitting the bomb and making that sacrifice, the biggest character growth would have been Shannon if she would have lived this long.
Oh, imagine if Light Sticks ends up becoming a thing in season 5, where Shannon ends up forming that role as Sawyer's housewife.
Think like, I don't know, Walking Dead, she becomes a badass through all the time traveling stuff. But this is all reserved for Juliet because that's what she is.
I don't see that. I don't see Shannon going that far.
Oh, I'm just saying if they took somebody that would have went from completely selfish to doing an act like this, which is so selfless, she would be the perfect character for that.
She was moving in that direction.
Yeah, true.
She wasn't as selfish.
Right.
And she was pregnant with Boone's baby, so.
Saeed. No, I think she's more likely pregnant with Saeed's baby, considering that little romp that they had in the tent on the beach before Boone died.
Could have been.
Maybe it's twins. One Boone, one Saeed in the womb.
Oh my God. And Ana Lucia killed
both of them.
Shannon.
Yeah.
Oh my.
So someone killed her baby and she killed someone else's baby.
If Shannon did get pregnant by Saeed, Ana Lucia did the thing that she had done to her.
Right.
Yeah. But then Sven would have been pissed that someone else stole the thunder of getting pregnant on the island, because that really was her thing for a good majority of the middle seasons there.
There is this whole idea of we are the causes of our own suffering. Juliet hits the bomb. It causes all the pregnancy issues on the island. She's brought there to fix the problem that she actually created. There is this kind of loop here. Now that's something to think about.
Because Eloise is pregnant, we know that because Richard knocks her on the head to save her from
Yes. I did write that down. I was like, we have confirmation this episode that Eloise is indeed pregnant.
Pregnant with
Daniel,
her son, which is kind of,
and they chose the perfect child actor for Kate, did they not?
Yeah. She was the freckles and everything.
Looked just like her. She didn't seem too upset she got caught, though, did she?
Are we to believe that this was like the first misdemeanor that she participated in with the young Tom? Or do we think that, like, maybe to your point, it's like she had gotten her wrist slapped so many times at that point that she's like, one more is not going to do me any harm. I don't want to go back to this gas station anyway.
Yeah. I feel like Jacob knew that the lunchbox meant so much to her and her development that he wanted to make sure that she got it without any complications.
Because he knew about the significance with Tom and the time capsule.
Yeah, you're going to want to go to New Mexico and do a really bad flashback episode in season 1 where you're a bank robber, Kate. You'll have to do that one day.
But the gas station attendant, the owner obviously knows Kate's parents, right? Did it ever come up in conversation where, because you can't come in here without your parents. Now, if she came walking with her parents, would you say, hey, just to let you know, your daughter tried to steal a lunchbox, but some guy paid for it, so I didn't press charges. That conversation had to come up, right?
He probably just wanted to make sure he had the money, like.
But as a responsible adult, when okay, look, I want to make a federal case out of this, but your daughter was going to steal a lunchbox, and
how many conversations do you have with your gas station guy?
if in a small town,
I don't know. I don't know.
I have a question.
I think it's a weird. The whole thing was weird.
As Mike said, are we to believe? Are we to believe Jacob touched every single person that came to the island?
Yeah, I mean, it looks like... Well, it's interesting because I guess the one person he didn't touch in those flashbacks we saw was Alana, and that was more so like she already knew who Jacob was and was like, hey, recruiting you on a mission. So I guess, yeah, he sort of went on his globe... I mean, it helps that he can sort of go through time, right? Like, we saw everything from Kate as a child to Sawyer and Hurley post-Oceanic 6, convincing them, or at least convincing Hurley to go back to the island. So I think it does help that I don't know if he can just like teleport or if he has to take some sort of transportation, but he is very easily able to just, much like Richard Alpert did once upon a time, like leave the island, try to do his own quote unquote recruitment. But I would think that the touch is like almost like the way to get past, almost like the pylons of the island in a way to help keep you alive.
Now, if you're Man in Black, and we learn from Across the Sea, Ralph's favorite episode, that he just wants to get off the island. Now he's stuck on that, but your brother, who wanted to stay on the island, can just go whenever he wants. Off and on, off and on. Wouldn't that upset you even more? Wouldn't that be like, look, you never wanted to leave this island. That's all I wanted to do is see what was out there. And now you're going everywhere, and I'm stuck on this island because of you.
Yeah, Jacob should have just taken photos and just said, like, oh, this is the Taj Mahal. This is the Leaning Tower of Pisa.
You'll get together someday. Not.
I don't. It's just a frustrating thing. I think for poor Man in Black. I feel bad for him.
But in the technically Juliet flashback scene in this episode, Jacob did not. He was not there. No. And we also never saw Jacob touch many different characters, but I think that he did not have to go and touch Desmond or Juliet. In my opinion, I think both those characters are special. Desmond turned the key, Juliet hit the bomb.
But they're not candidates, are they?
I don't believe they are.
Well, Juliet's number 58.
Is Juliet a candidate? She was a candidate?
Yeah.
But what about Sun and Jin? One of them wasn't a candidate.
Yeah,
right?
one of the Kwans was. I don't know. I've always thought that I feel like Sun was the one who had more of an arc to her in terms of like gaining a voice. So I'd like to believe that like she was probably the better candidate of the two, but that may not necessarily mean that she was the candidate out of the two. Maybe Jacob was a bit of a chauvinist and decided that the man in the relationship should become the candidate.
That goes on par with Jacob. Yeah. Yeah.
Because he does touch both of them. Because that was the whole thing. Okay, well, he touched both of them. He didn't touch that whole touching thing that we. And I do love the scene with where he's reading the book, where John Locke gets pushed out the window, and he's
like, "You'll be fine."
Yeah, he calmly closes the book, walks over. People call 911. Oh my God!
Yeah, Ralph, was it you who mentioned Locke or Jacob went over there and touched Locke earlier? Weren't you saying Jacob saved Locke?
No. Oh yeah. He puts his hand on Locke.
Why didn't he prevent him from being pushed out of the window in the first place?
Because John Locke needs that pain in his life to keep him moving along that path. The same way that Saeed needs. I mean, he's a stubborn guy. And how many times was he fooled by Anthony Cooper?
Well, over and over.
Locke has a lot of issues.
So by being pushed out of the window, that is the thing that kind of sticks with him. That's kind of the linchpin that sort of gets Locke going on his trajectory towards the island.
I don't think that Jacob has to touch people for them to come to the island. That's why I was saying that Desmond and Juliet, I saw them as special. Richard manipulated Juliet. Widmore manipulated Desmond, and that could be through Jacob. But I think that some characters, maybe he wasn't necessarily able to just go to a point in their life and be like, "Bing, you're coming." I think some people.
I don't think that's what it is. I don't think that's what it is. I don't think the touching of them make go to the island, much in the way that the Man in Black uses the smoke to scan people's pasts. Maybe Jacob has to touch them to kind of get a sense of who they are a little bit more.
Oh, that's interesting. Yeah, it's sort of like like it was someone who's like superpowers, like being able to touch them and like get a sense of who they are, and then you judge them from there. It's almost like a job interview in the form of touching them.
But he already knew.
He may have.
He kind of already knew who they were.
I don't know. You know,
based on the lighthouse, right?
You might have just touched a bunch of random people and was just like, no, not you, not you.
Well, from the lighthouse, he knew the candidates that were coming. If you believe that Jacob can go forward and backward in time, then he knew that way. Also, the Sawyer had time traveled and been to the island by the time Jacob saw him. So he already knew everything about the island, past, present, future, if you subscribe to Jacob knowing all. So he wouldn't necessarily, he'd already know their essence. You know what I mean? Because he tells them, I chose you because you were all flawed. Did he have to touch them to find that out? Or did he just know?
Does he touch them because he like say they're in a plane crash, he wants them to survive? If he touches that, like he brought basically Locke back from the dead, right? Does Locke die if he doesn't touch him?
Yeah, I don't know. Has anyone done the ballistics research? And if you fall however many stories, you're automatically dead?
It was 8 stories, and he fell on his back. He probably hit his head at the same time, so there'd definitely be some damage there.
He also doesn't take his first breath until after Jacob touches him on the shoulder.
So what I'm saying is, if does Jacob go, okay, I need to touch all these, I'm going to touch these certain people on flight 815, they will survive. The other ones, sorry, they'll die. Maybe he just goes through time, and that's what maybe his touch is what keeps them, lets them survive the horrible ways they come to the island. I don't know.
I don't know. I find it weird if he's the one that like wakes John Locke up and saves his life. Like I would much rather believe that like if he has any sort of powers, it only takes effect while you're on the island. Like how Richard Alpert can only stay ageless when he's on the island. If he just can do it anywhere, then he's a freaking X-Man. He's not Jacob. But
you had where Michael couldn't kill himself off the island because the island wasn't done with you yet. Remember, it is because Tom Friendly tells Michael, you can't kill yourself. The island's not done with you yet. So, right?
Yeah, and what's your point?
Well, I'm just saying if the island has that kind of power, then Jacob is the man.
That's different though. That's purpose versus, hey, let me walk over to you and heal your wounds using my healing touch. That's distinctly different to me.
Ralph pointed out too, he was literally not breathing until Jacob touched him.
So was Juliet until she woke up and heard the rocks bang. She was like,
I don't know. I don't have the answer for this one. I do. We have. I don't know if you guys talked about this when I was gone, but the best scene in this whole episode, both parts, was Phil's death.
Oh, yes.
Yeah, I mean that's one of the more gruesome deaths I think we've seen on Lost in a while, with him just getting all the rebar through him.
Well, they had to because he's the one that slaps Juliet.
Yeah.
And from that point on, I mean, you always hate Phil anyway because he's kind of a weasel. But when he does that, we all want to just beat the crap out of Phil, don't we? We just all want to. And so when you see those rebarbs come in, bah, bah, it's like yes. I mean, it's a sad way to go, but I enjoyed it myself.
How did we feel about ultimately finding out how Pierre Chang lost his hand? I thought that was another one of a little bit of a wop, like, oh yeah, a piece of steel came down on it. I wanted some big thing to happen to have him lose his hand.
Well, Miles seemed to pick up that piece of steel like it was nothing.
It's mom strength, right?
Yeah.
My dad's in trouble.
Dad! You want to have a catch? I guess not, but anyway.
I thought it was kind of a cool callback to the season 3 finale when Hurley saves everybody with a van.
Yeah.
Because he kind of did the same, here.
And a little bit of a callback to the season 3 finale. The whole Rose and Bernard thing is an extension on Rose's, if you say live together, die alone one more time, Jack, where like it's just them like deadpanning, like, y'all are crazy. Stop it. We're good. We've conquered our own little bungalow. You're just running through the jungle, shooting each other through time. I don't want anything to do with this.
Now you have the bomb there, Jacob. You have the bomb there, Caleb.
That is so weird because so many people have done that to me.
Called you Jacob?
Yes, all my life. All right,
Jacob.
Jacob, no Caleb. So I don't know what the
I just had Jacob on my mind.
I mean, I know this is Lost related, so obviously, but outside of the world of Lost, it's very odd. So I guess it's not that odd.
So you have the bomb's got some metal around it, right?
Yeah.
Couldn't Jack have just put the bomb there, and once everything started going in, walked away, the bomb goes sucked into the thing, boom.
Well, they didn't know. They didn't know.
He could have.
That was going to happen.
Well, Saeed could have. Well, Saeed was bleeding.
It also could have been made of a non-metallic metal or non-magnetic metal as well.
But it didn't have to be right in the hole. It's a nuclear bomb. It's gonna.
I think Saeed was like, it's rigged to go on impact. You have to get it as close to the center as possible. And when they pull up, and Sawyer's like, shut that thing off, and Miles' dad can't because it's already started.
Mm-hmm. They hit the pocket.
Yeah. So I don't think they realized nobody would be standing around all the metal if they knew that.
When everything started getting sucked down and they see the metal's being pulled in, why are they still standing there? I mean, Juliet never moved.
Well, I think it was so chaotic because first of all, like, things are flying everywhere, so you're probably like, what's going on? And then you have Jack, who gets knocked over the head with the toolbox. So Kate runs after him. So Juliet.
I will say, thank God that Jacob touched Jack so that he woke up in time to help Sawyer from standing over the chasm.
He'd be dead if it wasn't for Jacob.
So I feel like Juliet was probably like watching Sawyer trying to find him, and then Phil has got like his gun aimed at Sawyer, and thankfully the scaffolding falls and gets him.
Because Phil made the biggest mistake. You don't talk first, right? You're just blowing it.
Oh, this is the 70s. They're in the middle of like Dirty Harry of it all. So they're still trying to figure it out. But yeah, R.I.P. Phil. I mean, this is really a wrap on. Brzezinski just drives away being like, well, this was not great, but I'll still hang out in this thing when it gets built for a while.
Would anybody want to hang around Brzezinski?
I mean, God, what did I say? I said he continues to be annoying.
He's angry. He's just, every episode, every scene, he's annoying. He's like screaming. He's like uptight. Cheers for this.
Well, that's the thing, is that like he is so overly obsessed with his work that he will like take out anything or anybody that's in the way of it. And so that does make him a bit of a grating character when he's just so dedicated to having this thing happen.
He drove me crazy. And does anyone remember back when it first happened, we see that Locke is in the box? What was your first reaction? I mean, I'm trying to remember my first reaction, but
I don't remember.
My first reaction was, I don't care. Show me Juliet. Where's she at?
Next. My reaction was definitely, and I'm assuming a lot of people were like, wait, but what does that mean? And basically what Sun says, right? Like, wait, but if John Locke is him, then who's this? And then you sort of put two and two together as to who he might be. So it was definitely sort of, luckily the characters, I think, vocalized what a lot of us were feeling in the moment of trying to put together the mental math as to who we've just been watching for the past, 6 or 7 episodes.
And why did they need because it took 4 people to carry this box, which slowed them down. Why did they need such a big box to carry John Locke?
Well, I guess that may have been
the only box from the flight that was big enough or something.
Yeah, they said they found it in the cargo hold.
Maybe they should have. No, to Jack's point, I think they should have cut him up into pieces, and put him in like a sack and just like sling it over your shoulder.
You just need the head. You just need the face, right?
That's weird. If you just pull
No.
out the face of John Locke and you just throw it on the ground, then
Again, you're in a hurry.
Sure.
You're in a
I
hurry.
Think what
judge
you
Alana.
will.
Alana was there to save Jacob, right? That was her job, right? To
Yeah.
save Jacob. Well, she failed because she just. I'm sorry. There was too much. You're going through the jungle with this huge. Because even Frank said when they burned down Jacob's cabin, I don't think this is a good idea inside the jungle. To you could have burned down the whole jungle. Again, Frank, the smartest guy. Soon to be the
Actually,
smartest person on the show.
I take that back. I wasn't thinking about Juliet in that one moment because I was thinking about Locke. Because honestly, I was not expecting to see her again for the rest of that episode. She went down, and then I thought that was it. I never thought that there was going to be like an extra 2-minute scene at the very end of the episode because I remember, I don't know if it was Lostpedia or what fan forum it was, you would get to vote at like the beginning of a season or episode, and you would have to answer questions like, who do you think is going to be the first character on screen? Who do you think is going to be the last character on screen? Because I remember them having to go back and tally it all up because actually Miles was the first character shown on screen as a baby. But nobody had guessed Juliet would have been the last person on screen, and it was just so cool.
I used to do that as a contest on our podcast.
Okay, maybe that's where I saw it from.
It could have different. I used to do like 50 questions. How many times would Jack cry? How many? It was who would be.
Wait, you Jack or Jack Shepard?
Oh, how many times? Yeah, Jack Shepard. How many times would Jack? And we'd have to debate. Sometimes it'd be like, did he actually cry? Did he not cry? How many times would Hurley say "dude," the dude count, and all that stuff? Yeah, but I do remember that it was who would be the first one we see on the screen, who would be the last person we saw on the screen.
What did y'all think? Did y'all think, okay, we're done with the 70s right now?
Oh yeah. Well, you know what it reminded me of was Exodus, which is my personal favorite episode of Lost, where they cut off the second to last act with Walt getting kidnapped off the raft, and we were done with the raft after that for the rest of the episode. And so I thought it was going to be a very similar thing of like, okay, we are done with this storyline. We're now moving on. Jacob gets kicked into the fire, etc. So yeah, I was stunned that she was alive, that the bomb went off, and that we flashed to white, which we know from the entire season had meant time travel. And so something was going to happen some way, somehow in season 6.
I know I couldn't wait for it to happen. I mean, how long we had to wait, like 8 months, right?
That's what I'm saying. You have to wait so long to be like, is anybody alive? Are they going to bring in a whole new cast? Are we starting back from the beginning? Are we moving the puzzle pieces, back, or what are we doing? But I also, I don't know if y'all have seen it. But Hurley, when he's being let out of jail, the items that they give back to him are all the items Jacob gave to everybody.
Oh, didn't think about that.
So the guy's like one ballpoint pen, and Jacob had given Sawyer a pen, and then he was like some cash, and Jacob had given Kate, the cash or whatever.
Oh yeah, that's a great point.
The candy,
fruit roll would be Jack, right?
Yes, the Apollo
So now
bar.
I wonder, could this have been a larger sign to Ralph's point about hinting towards the end of Hurley taking Jacob's spot as the future leader of the island? That like everyone's given individual things, he's given the lot, he's given them all.
Yeah, and he gets the guitar case. He gets the major, the major prize. Yeah.
Huh? Didn't even think about that.
I think chains are a big metaphor in the whole show. I think it might have been when your thing glitched or whatever, but I was talking about how Juliet's insecurities were building up, and it was kind of like the chains weighing her down, her burdens, her insecurities, things like that. And I thought that was really like a poetic way. It's probably the most like screwed up, brutal way to die compared to like, just getting shot or drowning or whatever. But I think that like further went along with her character.
Mm-hmm.
Do we think that Kate really tried to get the chains off?
Oh God.
I mean, listen, Kate also does not have the best strength. So I can imagine like chains, a whole bunch of chains being pulled down magnetically. Like, I don't even think the Hulk could get those chains off of her.
Mhm.
I can't do it. Sorry.
She's like, sure, and then she drops them all, and then like tries to reach down. I don't know. It's weird.
Well, she tried. She was first. She was the first one over there trying to save. Julie.
What is annoying is when Sawyer climbs down and gets down to and finds Juliet, and the whole time Kate's up there in LAX. Sawyer, everything good? It's like, shut up, give him a moment. She's obviously not in a good position right now. Quit. She doesn't want. She's probably like, I'm pissed that Kate keeps yelling.
Yeah, and that's the P
that's her
word.
last word.
Well, I will say though, I mean, speaking of annoying things with season 6, I'm gonna admit I'm a little annoyed that Saeed doesn't die in the incident, just because I'm just never been a big fan of the whole temple dark Saeed.
Yep.
I know it does lead to like the moment aboard the submarine, but it just reminded me of this episode of like, oh yeah, he's gonna get shot and then he's gonna get taken to the temple and like baptized.
Sawyer has a good scene. Oh my gosh, your hand is right there where Juliet's is, and it looked like it was moving.
She's
Yes.
alive.
I was like, she's still trying. God, what did you just say? Because
Saeed.
Saeed. Okay, so Sawyer has a perfect line. Because Kate's like, "Do you believe he's still alive?" or something like that, and Sawyer's like, "Well, why wouldn't he be? He's a torturer. He deserves another go around." And I'm like, exactly. Like, why is he still alive? Juliet.
You think they ran out of things to do with Saeed?
Yes, very much so. I think they didn't want to like kill him off for the final season. He's an OG. He's like a first season character, and they wanted. Well, it's clear they wanted to do something with him, I guess, to show like the power of the temple and the Dogen of it all. But I think it just came off sloppy in retrospect.
That premiere starts out really, really dark. I mean, you have Saeed on the verge of death, Juliet on the verge of death. They're kind of split. It's all about death, in that first episode. So it's really,
And I wanted to say too, Roger Linus is so upset that his son got shot. It's his fault.
Yeah, give me a break.
It's weird. It's the one thing they actually likes about his son is the fact that his son got shot, and so now he has like a revenge fantasy of shooting the man who shot his son.
That's the guy that killed my son. Don't shoot! I got a nuclear bomb on my.
I don't care.
Oh. Anyway, anything else you guys want to talk about? I think we've pretty much covered it all, right?
Yeah, last like proper season finale before the end. So it's a commemorative occasion in many ways. Yeah.
And I got to say, I really enjoyed. I mean, I know people have always said that season 5 could be their favorite. It's up there. I mean, I really enjoyed rewatching season 5.
It's my favorite season.
Mine too.
I'll go with 1 just because it started it all. But
yeah,
5's probably number 2.
I think that this episode had so many great quotes. This episode was really heavy on not just the mythology, but the whole fate versus destiny. I mean, Jack and Sawyer have an entire conversation. Great scene. And you have the very beginning. They come, they fight, they destroy, they corrupt. It always ends the same. You have that. And then you have, Juliet of, if I never meet you, I never have to lose you. These ideals that are at play here, and Sawyer, I don't speak destiny. Whatever happened. You have a lot of this going on, and I think that's what makes this episode another reason why it's so great, because there's so many quotes that are really memorable. Because in the grand scheme of things, they come, they fight, they destroy, they corrupt. Mother even repeats that in Across the Sea.
Right.
So
maybe she starts it.
Maybe she got it from him.
Yeah.
Oh no, he got it from her.
Yeah.
Yeah.
on that note, I thought this was a great conversation. Even the parts I missed, I thought that was might have been.
You only missed like 2 minutes, actually, realistically.
Yeah. Oh, it seemed like forever. I couldn't get my computer to shut off. I'm like going, it's just doing that spinning.
Well, it felt like heaven.
I bet it did. I'm like, I go, maybe I can just leave and they won't know. I just
you were dead the whole time.
Yeah.
Well, I there's one thing I want to say is I can't believe you made it this far and you're down to your final season. You have you have something like 8 episodes or something.
Is that all there is in season?
Well, I think it's like 16 or 17 episodes, maybe 20 in the final season.
No, I figured there was like 16 episodes.
Yeah, but you're doing 2 episodes of this each. So
right. Oh,
yeah,
I see what you're saying. Okay, yeah.
Yeah.
But LAX would be like part 1 and 2. And
Yeah,
then
so you're gonna
have 2 through 17, and the finale is going to be super long.
Yeah, so it's 17 if you're including LAX as 2 episodes.
And then just don't do Across the Sea, and you'll.
No, but then you're gonna have it. Otherwise, you're not gonna come back. Like that's your spot. But ironically enough, Jack, because of your twice a week approach, you're gonna finish the series before Josh and I are done with season 3 of Lost. So you have like outsped us and then some while we're taking our sweet ass time. We're living in Shangri-La of Juliet right now. She is alive and well.
We started about the same time. I think
we started about the same time. We took a couple weeks off in the beginning of season 3, but yeah, right now, as I mentioned, we're doing Enter 7-7 this week, so we're about halfway through season 3. But because of your twice a week approach, and because seasons 4, 5, and 6 are so much shorter than the first 3, like you have sped through the back half of the Lost catalog.
And have you done One of Us yet?
No, One of Us has not happened yet. Well, yeah, because I'm trying to think like we had One of Them, but now we're doing One of Us is coming up.
Right, yeah. So anyways, so it was nice that the incident was something that we knew way back in season 2 when Saeed was crawling in the, and so now we actually know what it was. And in conclusion, Juliet saved everybody. So we can thank the whole show for her. Yeah.
In conclusion, exactly.
In conclusion, Juliet is the best.
Juliet is God.
Yes. Jacob is not.
We'll see.
Have you not seen the ending? Anyway, we'll be back next week for the LAX parts 1 and 2 as we hit the final season. Dun dun dun. Anything else, Mike? You have anything you guys want to push, promote?
I'm doing so much stuff right now. Go to @Mike Bloom, type on Twitter, but also check out postshowrecaps.com/Patreon because the place where we're doing our own Lost rewatch on Post Show Recaps just lost a patron feed where we discuss so much stuff, including extra podcasts. We have a Discord going on. So if you wanna help support the weekly Lost 3+ hour Lost podcasting that we're doing every week, feel free to go in there for us.
That's 3 hours with only one episode.
Yeah, it's 3 hours with only one episode, so we talk a lot. So if you want to toss us $4, $8, $15, hell, even $23 or $42, we will be very keen on it.
Nice. And Ralph, I was looking right
here. Right here. I see my skunk.
Oh my God, it's been a long weekend. I got.
You can find me at Caleb is Lost. I also have a website. I'm an author of the book Harnessing Darkness, Expressing Mental Illness Through Poetry. You can find it online and on Amazon and places like that. I'm a big mental health advocate. And also, don't forget to go vote or send in your ballot and vote for people who will help people. Let's do that. Thanks.
Well, yeah, vote for the Juliets of the world.
I was just about to say that. I was going to say vote for Juliet.
Yes.
No, do not write in Juliet. Do not write in Juliet.
No, yeah, don't.
Well, if enough people listen to this, you could probably.
In Alabama, there are so many people who are just running unopposed, and there's no push to have anybody else on the ballot. I was asking around, searching online, anything I could to be like,
get in there.
Who do you write in this spot? And I was told my husband, I said I should just go through and write all Lost characters, and everybody will be so confused.
Get in there and campaign. Run for office.
I know running a post because we first moved here. I said this on the Ramblecast. What's his name? Edwards was running for Senate, and I go, God, this guy, it's just so positive. He's never bashed his opponent, not once. And finally, I found out. I go, oh, he isn't running against him. I go, so
See-
why is he wasting all this money to go feed people? I go,
His
Yeah,
opponent was
opponent, maybe
dead the
don't
whole
have one.
time.
I just was like, going, I'm going to vote for this guy. This guy is that's how a campaign. I want to hear what you're going to do, not what this guy has done, or person or female, whatever it is. And I go, I found out about a month later, well, he's not running against anybody. I go, his commercial's on all the time.
You need to look up Alabama. You need to look up Tommy Tuberville. Okay, he doesn't even live in Alabama. He like purchased a house in Alabama just to say he lives here, and that's how he's even running against Doug Jones, the first liberal senator that we've been able to have. But you should look up his campaign videos.
Oh, interesting.
It's all like,
I'd
I'm
like
gonna save the dead babies. I love the flag.
I would love to look at some more advertisement, but I think I've seen enough so far. It's like, oh my God, please stop. But anyway.
They will stop if you go out and vote.
Yeah. There we go. You don't even have to go out. Right?
Yes.
They're just sending the ballots.
Mail it in.
But that's all we got. I was going to say something I've completely forgot. Anyway, thanks guys for joining us. Fun talk.
It was great meeting all of y'all.
Yeah, you too.
Fun.
It was nice meeting all three of you. It was great. Fantastic. We're out. Bye.